Hey, what's going down, Savages? Welcome to episode 5 of Le Savage Show. I'm your host, Stéphane Paulin. And before I get to announcing who my guest is for episode 5, last Saturday I had the chance of being a guest on the Unanimous Decision podcast, a podcast hosted by Adam Kaplan. We had a great conversation. Adam and I are both Steelers fans, and of course, that's where the conversation started. But we then got into how I got into MMA and pro wrestling, as well as we discussed how a strong mental fortitude is beneficial to a combat athlete. Check out the latest episode available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Again, the podcast, The Unanimous Decision, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Go check out the latest episode. We had a great conversation and it was lots of fun. I'd also like to give a big thanks to everyone who has taken the time to subscribe to Le Savage Show on all platforms. If you haven't done so, Le Savage Show is available on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Go subscribe, rate, and review. It's greatly appreciated. My guest for episode 5 of Le Savage Show is a pro wrestler, podcaster, and one of my favorite humans. One thing pro wrestling has given me is the opportunity to cultivate amazing friendships with unique and wonderful humans. And this guy is one of those humans. He's honestly one of the most talented people I've heard and seen on the mic. His quick-witted, sometimes highbrow humor, as he calls it, entertains the shit out of me. And I just love what he's doing. His podcast, Gabagool and 8, is available wherever you get your podcast, and I highly recommend you subscribe to it. I really hope you enjoy episode 5 of Le Savage Show with Dawson Graham, a.k.a. Wonderful Wes Dawson. Wes Dawson, Dawson Graham, whatever the fuck I want to call you. Welcome to Le Savage Show.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You've been on my podcast before. You were on This Savage Life. This is kind of the same thing, but a little bilingual title now.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple conversations before. How the fuck you been, man?
Pretty good. I just been, when people ask me what am I up to, I'm like, not very much. Still living this this COVID life where I try to pretend I'm productive, but you can't really get much done. But
man, like it seems like it's never gonna end. Like I all know. Like I keep talking to my wife. I'm like, I get it. Like it's gonna be like this for a little while until life gets back to normal, or it'll never get back to the pre-pandemic normal.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be something. It's weird. It's weird how this time around, I don't know if you followed the news, but they just announced basically that they're not opening the gyms or the restaurants until like January 11th.
Yeah.
And I feel like the people have stopped giving a fuck. Like I don't see as much outrage about it this time around that I did the first time, I think people are so like, normal. Yeah. Or I think people are just like, I don't give a shit what the government tells me he's going to do. Like, I'm just going to do me. I'm going to go visit my family. The fuck I want to visit my family. And then I'm just going to, I think a lot of people were planning on doing Christmas with family anyway, no matter what the fuck they were gonna do, you know what I mean? So
because I think the longer it goes, the more people are like, fuck that, I already spent 8 months doing what I was supposed to, it didn't change anything, I'm going back to doing what I want.
It's yeah, but I like you, I feel like when you're stuck, like I go to work, right? So I get to go to work, but like I come home from work, I can't go to the gym, so I either try to do workouts outside, but even now it's like I worked out this morning, me and the wife, we worked out, but it's fucking cold, man.
Exactly. It's gonna be minus 20 soon. That's it.
There's like fucking 5-10 centimeters of snow tomorrow with some rain. Tomorrow is normally the off day in our household. Like I don't do shit on Sunday. It's like I get up, I make a big ass breakfast, I watch football all day, I wake and bake the moment I get up, and I'm like stay high the whole day. And
Sundays are for.
Ah, man. But it's fucking weird, man. Like it's like this new life, this new world is like, it's like, ugh.
You're saying it's longer than you thought. I started growing my hair at the first announcement of a lockdown. I'm like, well, I won't cut my hair until this is over. And it's getting to the point that like it annoys me so much. It's so long now, and I'm like, oh my god.
I love it, man. Though I fucking love the hair, but you haven't cut it since when, though?
Since I guess end of April, because it was I had tickets for a concert, and that's when they started like announcing reduction of people. And then by the time the full lockdown came, I'm like, you know what? I'll see how long I can go with my hair. I thought it'd be like 6-7 months. I'm like, right now it's so I got to wear a ponytail half the time, using my sister's hair things to keep it out of my face now.
I remember those fucking days when I started wrestling. It was like that. Like it was like I had this long hair, and I used to put it in a fucking ponytail or a bun all the time just to keep it out of my fucking face.
Oh,
After a while, I was like, I can't stand this anymore. Every time I shave my head now, I'm like, oh my God, this is the fucking this is the best.
Just
man.
showering, I'm like having to wash. It takes like an extra 10 minutes just to wash my hair. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is ridiculous.
I had that when I had the super big beard. Remember the long beard that you shaved off my face there? It was like I was taking 10 minutes more in the shower just because I had to fucking shampoo and condition
get all the food out of it.
Yeah. So Gabagool and 8, motherfucker. Podcast world. Man, I remember last time I had you on, I don't think you had just started, right?
No, I think it's before we recorded. I asked you a few questions about like, how you're doing yours, ideas for things there, and then
was that was the last time you were on the show, right?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I was just hinting at it. I think I was saying like, oh, something big is coming, and then something relatively big. Yeah. I don't know how people would describe it there, but I tell everybody it's a very highbrow political discussion when I describe it to people.
Yeah, so describe your podcast. So for those of the people that Gabagool and 8, it's an 8-minute podcast. Every episode is 8 minute, and I like you. There's no breaks. Yeah, I feel like you don't breathe. You take a deep breath and then you talk for 8 minutes and you just spew your fucking nonsense, and it's awesome.
A lot of that, and it's not editing either. The only thing I edit is like where I was recording before. It was so cold that now like you can hear me like sniffling between sentences. So I had to cut those out. But other than that, it's pretty much I try and think of what I want to say, and then I try and bang it out as fast as I can, and then that way I get as much as I can in 8 minutes. But
that just saying that makes it more amazing for me, because I always go like, man, like he must rehearse this like a million times before he does this, because I feel like you just go in like the things you come up on the fly. I'm like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Like the last one there, was it the last one you talked about taking a shit there?
Yeah, that wasn't the plan. Originally, I wanted to talk about working out a bit and injuries, and then I started talking about shitting, and then that was like almost 2 episodes of talking about that. I was like, oh my God.
I remember when I was during the pandemic, when I was fucking spitting out these podcasts like they were candy. I was doing a few of them by myself because in between, right? I remember one I got really, really high right before, and I just turned on the microphone, and I had something in mind that I wanted to talk about, or I don't remember if I did exactly, but I just remember just hitting record and just talking about whatever came to mind, and just going on these long tangents. And at the end, you're like, man, I really didn't want to talk about that, but it's like, fuck this. I guess this is where it's going to be, right? Oh, man. So describe your podcast, man. What the fuck, man? It's awesome.
Well, pretty much it's very, very highbrow stuff, as we described. No, it's pretty much like sometimes it's ranting, sometimes it's like pretty much in every episode there's one thing I really like. There's always like one joke that I enjoyed, and the rest is kind of just whatever I can pop out in those 8 minutes there. But it's really like it's a fun podcast. It's really don't listen to that if you're looking for like a deep political breakdown of the recent events in the news or anything like that. But I wasn't sure if I was going to keep doing it, but now I was trying to prep some stuff before we got going today to see what I wanted to record for next week. But it's turning into I enjoy it so much that I don't really mind doing it, but it really helps the 8-minute blocks, keeping it consistent, doing it every week. Cause like, I can only imagine you got to edit or try and pick through like 2 hours or an hour of content to get that ready.
So you, like you said, you don't edit, you record for 8 minutes and that's what you post, right? I can only imagine if you want to cut it down to 8, you could record like an hour and just try to pick the shit that you think could fit into 8 minutes. You'd lose yourself. You'd cut it from 60 minutes to 30 minutes. Then it'd be like a fucking pulling teeth at this point, like trying to pick, like you're so worried about just leaving shit out that you would probably would have been a banger or something that hit on the point that you want to hit. The reason I love your podcast, every time I listen to your podcast, it's always at work. I always listen to my podcast at work. You know, I put my headphones in and I bang out a few podcasts. And every time I see your episodes, I hit, and then I'm like, when it's done, I'm like, motherfucker, it's already done. Like I could, like this needs to be like 12 minutes or 15 minutes, like Gabagool in 12. Like fuck, man. Because
that's why I'm starting to have some 2-parters now, because I end up recording so much, and like even to cut it to 8 minutes, like sometimes it's like 7 seconds too long, and I'm like, well, I can't go over. I got to keep it under 8, and I'm like, I can't cut. I got to cut the whole thing out, So, but at least those blocks, that was kind of what I thought when I thought of it. I was like, if I keep them short, during people's lunch breaks on their drive to work, when they're easier to get through them. My buddy's like, I binged your whole show. I'm like, it took you like 2 hours or an hour or what?
How many episodes you got right now?
I think what are we up to? next week, episode 20 is coming out. We just had episode 19. And then, which my original, there I had to edit because my original guest hadn't sent me their voice clip. I kept ragging on them. You know the guy. I was like, God damn it. And
say
then finally,
say his name, fuck.
I'll say his name wrong so no one will know who I'm talking about. Doom. This is shame to you. So I had to call up Mike Marston and get him on it instead. He gave me quite a banger of an audio clip to mix in. So
I loved it. I fucking I think I wanted or I texted him after. I'm like, dude, your part on Dawson was so good.
Our buddy Kevin, he's like, yeah, Mike did like a full stand-up set for you. I was I know it was so good. But...
Oh fuck, man. I've been talking to him a lot, man. I fucking love what he's doing right now. Fuck.
Yeah.
He's wrestling tonight.
Oh shit. Well, I know he's wrestling and he looks like $1 million too. I was like, holy Christ, man.
That new fucking look that he has there with the dark trunks and the hair and the shit, man. Yeah. I watched his match. He posted a match with Channing Decker from Super the last time I was there. He sent it to me this morning. I woke up, me and my son watched it on the TV. Man, I was like, oh man, fuck you, Mike. Like I miss it now. Like for all this time, I was like, oh, my body feels so good. Like I haven't taken, this is what not taking bumps.
Oh yeah,
feels like, you know. And I'm like, oh man, I miss it.
It's got to be, and for him, it's like there's not many that can get that have in Quebec that have the chance to go back to wrestling. So for him, that must be so sweet, you know.
Especially after the injury that he had, you know, like being out for fucking 9-10 months, you know.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. At least he's young, you know. It's not like if I got out for 9-10 months. Well, everybody's out for 10 months now with the pandemic, right?
Well, it's like just my knee. I was still dealing with that, but then like I'm starting to show my age. I sprained my wrist like 2 weeks ago, and then I was like, whatever. I'll tape it up. I'll train. I took a week off. I'm like, fuck, my wrist hasn't healed yet. I was like sick at like 2.5 weeks. My wrist is still sprained. I'm like, God damn it.
God damn, man. That's what getting old is all about. Like, it's like you think it's just a little bang and you're like, motherfucker, I haven't been able to do anything. Yeah. Yeah, your knee's doing better or what's the fuck?
It's definitely better in terms of like I can move around, I can train. Like I can't really run full pin or anything, but I mean it's definitely functional. And then I was supposed to go get an MRI. Like I got the referral in April. I got the paper to get a referral in April, and then now it's just been this dance of they were taking people, there's no room, and then we're not taking anyone because of, you know, the cases went up. So it's very hard to get these kinds of like, because it's not considered like an urgent or priority rendezvous for me there
or whatever. Yeah.
But hopefully, because even just me, like it hurts still there. If I lean forward when I'm putting weight on it there, it still feels like my kneecap is ripping in two. So I'd like to get that fixed at some point there.
It'd be fun. It'd be nice if they could just open it up, fix it, and then after that be done, you know? Like it sucks, the rehab and all that shit, but like sometimes you just gotta, it has to be like, just fix it, you know? Just make it better. Like there has to be something that could be done. Like cut your knee off and give you a new knee. Like fucking.
Well, the guy's like, oh, you know, it doesn't necessarily merit that because it's invasive work they have to do. I'm like, I don't care if it's only like fixing 10% of it. If it's going to make it better, just do it. My God, like why? It's like you're not paying for it. It's the taxpayers. I'm like, and they pay for another whole bunch of other stupid crap. They can pay for this, you know?
It's messed up then, because I feel like even now, like with the pandemic, like it seems like if it wasn't for the pandemic, like you wouldn't have gotten an MRI like earlier, or at least right now, like it wouldn't have been like, oh, we can't have you in. Because probably they're doing this in a hospital somewhere, right? So they like, you can't come in because there's too many cases. And I can only imagine any other shit that's more important. And I'm not saying your knee is not important, but like fucking cancer screening and all that shit. Yeah. Like they've been talking about a lot about that. Like you're starting to skip like cancer screening and shit like that, where like they're probably going to have like a surge in like cancer cases simply because a lot of people couldn't get screening during this time because they can't do that shit. Like it's fucking messed up, man. It's messed up that, you know what messes me all the whole up about all this right now is that I'm at a point where I don't care anymore. Like it's like I don't know who to fucking believe, and I'm tired of just driving myself crazy on like, can I believe everybody? I definitely can't believe the news, can I? Because on one channel I watch something and they tell me something, and then the other one tells me that no, that's not right. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, who is right? Who's wrong? So I kind of just go with my instinct and I go, well, this whole time, this is how I viewed it. Why would I view it any differently? Just follow the fucking rules. At the end of the day, if you're not willing to, I tell myself, if you're not willing to make the necessary steps to try to fix what you think is wrong with the system, then just accept it and go. Like, I don't want to, you can call me a sheep if you want. I don't give a shit. But like I go out, I wear my mask. And do I agree that they need to close the gyms and the restaurants? No, I think it's stupid. But at the end of the day, I do understand with the logic that I choose to believe in. I do understand their fear of having cases, so many cases that their hospitals can't, can't hold up, and that how much money is that all also costing the the province. So I get all that, but as a consumer of gyms and other things, and like I said, I wish I could do my shit. Like a selfish part of me wants to go. What? I wish
trying
to
get back to normal.
But I do understand why they do it. But like I was telling my wife, like I was listening to Legault. I don't know if you watch his fucking his things, right?
I have to. I kind of work for the government, so
That's
I have to. That's it.
Like I don't know about you, but when I watch the man speak, like he speaks like he has like no confidence in anything he says. Like all he's repeating is something that he read for 30 minutes before this press conference. Like, what points do I need to hammer in? Why? Oh, this is why. Remember, this is why. Remember, this is why.
Sure they know.
This. It's like, and the way he speaks so slow, and like I find like it's like he doesn't give me confidence in what he's saying. It's like I have no idea if I can truly believe. Can I really trust that you know what you're saying, or because sometimes I believe that you have no clue in what the fuck you're doing. Like, do you get that same sense when you watch him speak?
Yeah, it definitely, it really is monotone. Like you said, it sounds like he's going through the motions of like, okay, we have to get this information out. It's out, and they can't interpret it one way or the other because I read it like a robot.
Yeah.
But I think like the big thing too is if they were more, it's because I understand they can't be too direct because then people freak out. But if they flat out said like, look, we can't shut down the economy because it will destroy our civilized world. Like it's our whole civilization is built on buying and selling stuff. And they're like, gyms are a drop in the bucket. So they want regular commerce to continue because they need that money coming in. But it's like they can't flat out say that. There's like a lot of things like, because people are always bitching online about, how can we do this? We can't do that. Like, how can we go to the SAQ? We can't go to the gym. Like, well, in SAQ, you stand 6 feet apart, you touch one bottle, you leave with it, you're wearing a mask. It's not so bad. But I'm like, and then the gyms, it's like you're breathing as hard as you possibly can. You're sweating on everything. You're touching everything. So I can understand those comparisons. They don't add up. But how come you can go on the metro system where people are crammed in there like sardines and that's fine? So like that doesn't make any fucking sense. There's too many like, there's too many inconsistencies in the logic of what the government says that they should kind of like be like, look, we understand it doesn't make sense, but it's because if we keep these open, the economy won't collapse. Whereas if we close these things, it'll help reduce numbers and the economy will survive. Like it's not fair to those businesses, but that's kind of the reality of it,
Yeah. I feel like their lack of transparency, like if someone came out and said exactly what you just said, I'd be like, all right, I'm good. I can see that you're exactly saying what the fuck is going on. Like, listen,
everyone wants it to be fair.
We would love to keep the gyms open, but we got to close some shit and we got to keep the shit that's making more money for the economy open. So, because honestly, like the thing that makes me upset, have you been to a mall lately?
No, I've been to a few Canadian Tires, and even then I'm like, it's free. You got rows that are only 6 feet wide with like 8 people trying to pass one another.
I went to, look, I still go to the malls. I'm not as much. I don't go like because I need to,
Yeah.
I try not to, but fuck, it's Christmas coming up, And dude, I went to Carrefour Laval last weekend, 2 weekends ago. There was lineups to wait in shops. It was 4:00. The one was closing in an hour, and it was packed.
That's crazy.
Like packed. And I'm like, if you're gonna, my brain goes, if you're gonna allow this, then there's no way the gyms are even this packed on when there's no pandemic. Like
that's it.
Like I couldn't walk in a straight line. Like I'd have to move out of the way to go in places, and it's like, the same thing happened. Where was I last weekend? Oh, it was at Best Buy. I went to Best Buy to get some fucking gift ideas, some ideas for Christmas. And it was packed of people, and I'm like, this is what makes me upset, is that you're leaving this open. But then I understand why, like you just explained, Like if these motherfuckers just came out and said, this is exactly what's going on,
Yeah.
take it or leave it. You can be upset, but you cannot be upset at the fact that I'm hiding anything from you guys, you know?
Yeah, because there's no consistency, and because everyone expects everything to be fair. You know, if we do this to this person, we do it like this, like, but that's not how it is. Like, because the reality of, you know, some businesses have, grocery stores have to stay open, whereas movie theaters don't. Like, the world won't collapse without movie theaters, you know. But
Yeah.
and another thing, like I see too, that it's like, in no way am I defending the government, saying they're doing a great job. I think they've shit the bed in many respects with in terms of the pandemic. But it's like a lot of people, they're giving shit to the government. But I'm like, it's not the government it's Francois Legault is not spitting in people's faces and spreading this. It's us who are spreading it. It's people who are like, I've been wearing this for 6 months. Fuck it. You know, what difference does it make? So they stop wearing it, or they don't, like, and myself too. I always tell my mom, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. But then I realize I'm like, when's the last time I washed my hands? I'm like, I took 2 shits. I didn't wash my hand. No. I wash my hands like in the morning. I'm like, fuck, I'm not even doing it. Like at first I was doing it like crazy. And then it just like naturally I do it less and less.
Same
and I was
for
like,
me.
it's not that people are doing it willing. Some people are. I saw somebody's post yesterday. I went somewhere, no one's wearing a mask, so I'm not fucking wearing one either. And I'm like, yeah, but the more people do that, like you understand, you're adding fuel to the fire. So it's like, it's not going to help anything by doing that. But no, it's a shit situation any way you look at it. But
it just reminds us of how fucking fragile everything is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying that this virus isn't a small thing, but it's one thing. It's one fucking thing that made everything collapse. Like you were saying earlier, like you imagine if the economy would collapse completely, where there's no one that could work, like that. This was so bad that we couldn't even go outside.
Yeah.
You understand? Like where like you can't even take the chance of coming in contact. This virus kills, like people want to make the argument, it only kills okay, whatever. But can you imagine if this thing killed fucking 25% of the people that came in contact with, or 50%? Like,
yeah, they don't have to be dead, just enough that there's so many sick that, like, say they can't staff the hospitals. Like, then what do? Then you have no resources that, like, if all of a sudden it gets into the military, all the soldiers are sick, then they can't set up emergency tents, they can't move people around.
People don't think that far though. Yeah. That's the thing. They only, like I keep telling my wife this, like a lot of people, they get upset because they are only looking at the cream at the surface. Because every time the government makes a decision, it goes on top and it goes, this is what you can and this is what you cannot do. But all underneath, you have all these, if you dig deep on the reason, like you're absolutely right. Like imagine if we're all like, you know what, this pandemic is a real thing, this virus is a real thing, but everything's open, go to living your normal life like before. And then all of a sudden, police officers, 80% of the staff is sick. And then the military, if anybody wants to invade us right now, our fucking military's down and out right now because everybody's like, people, I know it's an extreme way to think, but people don't seem to want to look past their nose about it. They're like, that's all, it affects me. Fuck me. What about me? What about me? What about me? Like, man, it's not about you, motherfucker. There's a global pandemic and it can affect, like, it can affect everybody. Like, it's like, you gotta realize at one point, like, you live in a society where you're gonna have to make these sacrifices in order for just shit to keep moving forward and not just be completely stalled. Like, but stop blaming the government. Like, this pandemic isn't the government's fault. They're trying to resolve this in the most logical way as far as they're concerned.
Well, it's like say, like my analogy that I had was like, if a janitor is trying to mop up piss with his feet, he's just kicking it around, and you're like, he's the government. You're like, you're doing a bad job at that, and then you take a piss into the pile. And you're like, why isn't this cleaned up yet? How come this is getting worse? It's like, yeah, they might not be doing the best job, but we're not helping the situation either, you know? And there's like all these cities, like I was going to say Toronto, but I thought even bigger. Think like New York City. All the food, all the resources, all the energy that we consume, it doesn't come locally. It's transported internationally. It comes from shipping. It comes from airplane. So it's like, imagine if there aren't people to drive those trucks. Now there aren't people to run those systems, to pump in oil and stuff like that. It's like these cities with 30 million people all of a sudden won't have enough food to feed them, you know? So it's like, they can't let things shut down to the point that it's going to affect it that big. But there's no like, there's no easy solution. There's no, I don't think there's anything the government could have done that would be like, all right, we're good to go. Because the countries that did great jobs at first, like Sweden and stuff, they're fucked now. You know, like the same problems popped up over time. So it's not a good situation for anybody.
It's fucked up because there's a part of me sometimes that wants to revisit how like everything has happened in the last 9 months, you know, like how me as a person and me or our family as a whole have dealt with it. Because I've said this more than once during this pandemic. I'm like, I get that it's a bad thing, but man, like there's a lot for me and my family. There's a lot of good things that came out of this pandemic. Like I've been able to like adjust my life for me and my family. I've been able to start putting energy behind other things and I like it. I like it, but I've seen myself get to the point where I'm frustrated because I can't see my friends and I can't sit down with you guys and shoot the shit and talk some, you know, nonsense. And I'm also, I can't go out and do my everyday. I can't go to the gym and be there and be like, it's, even though I can work out at my home, I can, it's not the same. Like that used to be my time where it's just me, myself, and I'm disconnected from everything. And I'm in this place surrounded by other people that share a common goal or common mindset, you know? And it's like that, just that energy that you feel at the gym compared to when I'm alone in the fucking outside when it's 4 degrees and I'm freezing my nuts off. Like, it's like, fuck, like it's, I don't know. It's a weird thing, but I'd like to kind of revisit that throughout the, you know, this whole pandemic and try to see like,
felt like we were coming out of it. It felt like we were like a few months ago. It felt like, okay, we put the numbers down. They were opening things back up.
Right? It was fuck, man.
I was like, this fall we're gonna have a big. I don't want to throw because we have like I've access to like a campground here. I want to like invite everyone up, have kind of like a big like, hey, everything's back to normal kind of party. And I'm like, now we're fucking end of November and nowhere closer. We're even further from that than we were before.
I think people don't realize also how much worse off like. Because the restrictions are not as bad. And when this first thing hit, like they closed down everything because they're like, fuck, we don't know what to do. Everything was closed. They closed the schools. They closed all the businesses, non-essential. Like I wasn't working. Now they kind of put these restrictions that are, let's face it, a lot less worse than when they were at first. But the cases are as much, if not more now. But people don't look at that. They just look at like, look, I had my life back this summer. Like, why am my business, and I understand all the restaurants and all the businesses that had to put money and adapt to putting all that plexiglass and all those things to be able to run their business, especially restaurants. And now you're just taking them back away from them. I get the frustration. If I was in the gym business or the restaurant business, I'd be pissed off too, you know? But man, like it's fucking winter. Coming along, like I said it, I'm like, if we're gonna go on lockdown, we're not gonna see an increase in things getting any better before March, April. Like
people are getting so fed up too. That's it. I think it's like it's a mix of like they can't really slow it naturally. They can't slow the disease, and also people, and it's normal too because even me, eventually, like I think I've done like 4 social outings all fucking year since March, and it's like eventually I'm like. At first you're like, whatever. But now I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like I haven't physically seen you since I think it was Mike's birthday party. And like, I don't think I've seen anybody since then, which was quite a while ago.
Yeah. Cause you didn't come last time, right? When we got together.
No, that's it. I couldn't come that weekend. And then it was like, other than that, I haven't seen anybody. And I was like, it does take a toll. It's weird. It's like you're saying the gym, regular people, you see regular things to do. And just knowing that I can't get in my car and go do something. It just kind of sucks. You're like, okay, well, I'm kind of stuck here. Like I have my apartment in the city. I stay in 2 to 3 nights a week if I'm working in the city. Otherwise, I'm up north. But I'm like, I've been living up north pretty much like a hermit for most of the year. So it's just so weird to think like, my God, 2020 has been like a complete loss almost, you know?
It's dangerous also to get in that zone though, because I think it was last week. Like I got home one night and I was just fucking frustrated, but and my wife was like, dude, like, why are you in that mindset? Like I was just done, you know. It was the day, I think it was the day that they announced that they were going to stay closed till the end of, it was like 2 weeks ago when they announced that gyms weren't reopening and that it was going to stay closed at least till the end of November. And I was like, I was just done. It was just like, like sometimes it's the straw that broke the camel's back. And I was frustrated, I think, because I'm a person that likes to be around my friends, but also I like to be just around, like I said earlier, sometimes just being around at the gym around other people, even though I don't know who they are and I don't
Yeah.
talk to them, I'm at least around people. And it makes me feel content to a certain point, like that human interaction of some sort, seeing you guys and just even my mom being able to go there, didn't my mom see my kids being able to
Yeah.
see their grandparents, like it fucks with me, every Saturday I go to my in-laws and we eat a fucking nice meal and we eat till I can't eat no more. I chit chat with my in-laws and my sister-in-law, like I miss those fucking interactions
Oh
because
yeah.
that's what I'm all about. This is why I do a podcast. This is why I love talking to people. This is why, I mean, you get me started, I can't shut up. Like I love it, and I
That's it.
felt like that as much as I try to get out that energy through working out and stuff, there's just a part of that energy that I just can't
There's no way to get it out, man.
other than having fucking physical contact or being interactions around other people. Like and I got to the point where I was also buying in to a lot of these fucking conspiracies because I feel like the more I got frustrated, the more no. I let my mind go there a few weeks ago because I was trying to see why people were going there. And then when I let my mind go there, it was like, oh yeah, motherfucker, the pull was real. Like, oh my, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, because we want to find a reason why we're in this shithole, like at least if we can be like, this is why these fucker. But it's the biggest thing with conspiracy theories. It's always it's for money. So, but who's making money? The governments are like dumping out billions trying to take
Yeah.
care. Like, so it's like, who's making money out of this? Like, well, mask sales. I'm like, yeah, they're not making that much money off 35-cent masks. Like they would make more money selling us fake pills that do nothing. Like there's the conspiracy. It's hard to trace it to something real because it always comes down to money. Like
That and power.
yeah.
I think my main concern with all of this, if I'm gonna buy into any quote unquote conspiracy about this whole thing, is that I'm not gonna go, oh, it's not a real thing. They made up the virus and they're just using this to control us. No, I think that if I want to believe something, it might be that the government saw an opportunity and is using it to their advantage. But what that advantage isn't 100% clear to me. But I can understand how certain people don't understand how for the government, power is everything. And the more they get to wield that power, that sword of power, the bigger it is, the more it's hard. Once you get more power, it's really hard to give it
relinquish
back.
it. Yeah. It's just, it's weird because it's like they want power, but at like if the cost of that power is like civil unrest and like, millions of people losing their jobs and their homes. And it's like, it's weird because like say they were like, okay, due to this disease that we can't control, there's an additional 7% tax on your income at the end of the year. Then I'd be like, okay, there's something going on here. Cause like, I see what they're doing, but it's like right now, I don't get how that they're benefit, like controlling us for sure. But I mean, say they controlled us by having conscription, sending us out to war. I can understand that. Like, okay, now, but it's like now, how does it benefit them to have people like ready to freaking kill their neighbors because everyone's been pent up for 8 months and can't do anything? And
I think a lot of people want to believe that the government is just a shell for the corporations behind them. So, for example, if you're a guy like Jeff Bezos, right? You're a billionaire with Amazon. You want to make more money, right? Couldn't you see it being a possibility that you go, listen, close down your economy, but I'll pay you directly. So they're behind the government because they're like, look, the more the people are at home, the more they're going to buy my products. You know what I mean? It's like, I like to get really baked sometimes and then really go into the crazy conspiracy. Like sometimes like right at night, when the kids are in bed, I'll smoke a little weed and then I'll sit on the couch and my wife is watching TV. And for like 5-10 minutes, I'm just sitting on the couch and I ain't saying anything. I'm just letting that weed like sit in, that
get those
that
ideas
first
flowing.
10 minutes where I'm like super paranoid and I'm like, oh, fuck. And then after that, I stand up and I start talking to my wife and my wife goes, oh shit. Then she hits
time for
pause
bed,
or mute. And then I always run these crazy thoughts in her because my wife is no bullshit, right? So I'd like to bounce my crazy fucked up ideas, and she just shoots them down like the like, are you crazy, motherfucker? But
go to bed.
it's like, wouldn't you, if like, let's say that, let's go deep into this conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
Let's say if you, because if I look at the landscape of what we've been in the last 30 years, we can all agree that technology has been probably at the forefront of what is getting bigger and bigger every fucking, at this point, it's every 6 months. Fuck, it's not every year, it's every 6 months. Technology just seems to be more and more part of our lives. And now with these motherfuckers that is attached to our hip, like, this is basic. Like, people want to talk about, oh, one day they're going to implant a chip in your head. Dude, you don't need to, motherfucker. That's it. You have this in your pocket. What's the difference between having this implanted in your brain or having it in your pocket?
So people say the vaccine will have a chip, and I'm like, we carry around a $2,000 chip everywhere we go, you know? Like,
but think about if technology is behind all of this, AI is behind this, and it's slowly guiding people to being more and more dependent on these things. I feel like the burn is very slow. Like it's gonna be like, our generation is I believe that the people that are the most addicted to these things are people of our generation, people that had half of our lives without them, and that are now going to the
see how useful they are
with this, and we're go like, man, this is so much easier. And I fell in love. I'd be the first. I'm addicted to it. Of course, I cannot go 5 minutes without picking up my fucking phone. And it's sad because sometimes I notice it and I go, man, I should be talking to my kids instead. At least I have I can do that and go, okay, I put it down, and then but I'm definitely addicted to this. But sometimes my conspiracies theory is that the machine is behind this. And it's like, how am I going to be able to get these motherfuckers to stay inside? Because I know if they stay inside, they're going to get more into this technology, right?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe if we got a pandemic going, and then boom, we got a pandemic going, and then people are all stuck inside, and then Zoom wasn't, I had never heard of Zoom before fucking pandemic hit. All of a sudden, Zoom is the biggest thing in the world because everybody's got to interact. And now everybody's on their phone, Instagram, this and that. And it's like social media. How many people, and I applaud them. I'll be the first one to encourage people, because look at me. I'm launching new podcasts every year, and I'm fucking trying my best to just, because I know that as much as people want to shit on technology, and it's like, I want to go back to the good old days,
never leave,
living in the cabin. Like, motherfucker, if you don't get used to this new way of life, this is the future. Like, podcasts for me is something I love doing, but I also see it as the future of news and interaction and how you're going to get your information later on in life. So I like to, bob and weave into all this technology shit. But man, if you want to dive into this conspiracies, you can easily go like, listen, man, if I was an AI machine and I had to figure out a way to slowly get people more hooked to this, it's easy to imagine that you could use a pandemic in order to have people sit inside their houses and be on this, instead of being 50% of the time. Now it's 85% of the time. And now they're using other shit. Like, you got to start paying attention to these little things and the new things they keep coming out with, and these new apps that make this so much easier. Like, man, it's easy to get lost in that. And I can see why certain people fall into that trap. And then all of a sudden, everything is a fucking conspiracy. Because at the end of the day, a lot of those conspiracies, you can convince yourself that they make sense.
Well, like especially that one, like I said, I think we're on the same wavelength for that, because the one conspiracy theory that I was like giving more credence to was really that this was to transition our communications and our commerce online, because then everything is tracked. Every dollar we spend, where it goes to, have we paid our taxes on it? Everything like, already big data is like the scourge of the internet. Like, the internet is like this amazing porn mag with some really cool articles in it and really cool giveaways and stuff, but it's also collecting all of your personal information. So it's so that one conspiracy theory, I'm like, that's some fucking next level evil shit if that's the case. But I could see that being a real, as opposed to like, oh, it's like 3M trying to sell more masks. I'm like, they're not making that much money selling masks. So it's like, the technology one, I could fully see that being a potential like threat to end our known society, you know.
And I love how people want to chalk it up to being so evil. Like if you were a businessman and you came up with a business model that could make yourself billions of dollars, and the business model was, I need to get people hooked on online commerce, motherfucker, wouldn't it be you
Yeah,
might think it's an evil plan, but like if that's my business, I'm gonna do everything possible to get these fucking people to shop online and to buy shit
yeah,
online and to interact online instead of interact. Is it the right thing? For me, I don't think it is. I think we need that one-on-one people, that interaction, that being
yeah.
able to hug somebody and talk to somebody face to face. But we also have to come to the conclusion that this here and technology and social media and all those things, like the my kids are going to be completely different because they're going to be in a world where they don't know what it was before.
Oh no,
This
that's
for
it.
them, they don't get why they go, I don't understand why you want me off of this.
Why
Like,
is it so
this is
bad?
my life.
Yeah,
The fuck, what's wrong with you? Like,
it's
why?
everybody's on that.
Like, why is it wrong for me to play PS4 for 4 hours straight? Like, I don't understand.
Mm,
Like, they don't understand the negative aspect of it,
yeah.
because they never had it before. They never had the different. They don't know the difference.
And you talk about like the social contact, like for sure online, there's a lot of like social interactions that are very positive too. But it's like, you're talking about like directly with people we know, like in a gym, guys we train with, our friends, family, things like that. But even like, I find it's like a basic human thing. Like say, I like going to live concerts, not so much now
Mm-hmm.
because I'm getting too old for them. But I mean, when I was still going to a lot of them, like I don't know anybody there, but just the feeling of knowing you're there with like 2,000 people, 10,000 people for the same thing, because you all love this band, you love this type of music, whatever it is, like you feel that camaraderie and you feel a connection with all these people. So it's like that's something I think people need. So going fully wireless, I don't think that'll be good for our mental health. And then and just in terms of pro wrestling, like I can't imagine what it's like for the guys in the ring not performing, like performing in front of empty arenas, because I find like so much of it, even if you don't know the people, it's connecting with them, interacting with other people on any degree. Whereas now it's like, for WWE, they have TVs. For everybody else, you're just wrestling in an empty arena, you know?
When I watched Mike's match there this morning, it's the first thing I noticed, that
Yeah.
that interaction was only between the wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there was no fan noise, no fan reaction. At least if I watch the WWE product, at least they pipe in the noise, right? The
Yeah.
crowd reaction and that shit. And if for the ones that are doing it on the indie level right now, it's like
It's gonna be
they
weird.
don't have that. It's like you have to adapt though. The thing that I think saves people like me and you, I don't know about more you, but about me, I know, is that I am at a point in my life where I've been able to cultivate all these tools that make me easily adaptable. Like
Mm,
I'm done being done are the days for me where when something becomes inconvenient for myself and my family, that I just sit there and complain about it and don't do anything about it.
yeah.
This pandemic was a convenience for all of us, but instead of just moping and just sitting around and doing nothing about it, I went, well, how can I adapt so that I can at least send this in the right direction, and how can I adapt for not just me but for my family? So
Yeah.
I put a lot of energy behind this podcast. Obviously I stopped doing it in the summer because fucking
Too
whatever,
busy.
a lot of thing busy and shit. But now I'm like with this new idea of the show, simply because I wanted to add French episodes. I always
Yeah.
thought that it was something that could be interesting, and that I didn't really see anybody offering. I'm sure
Mm,
there are, but I'm like, I have people that I would love to have conversations with, and I feel more comfortable and they feel more
yeah.
comfortable speaking in French. So I started this new show, and I stopped giving a shit that people are going to go, oh, what the fuck? Like every 2 years, he switches the podcast name. And I don't give a shit anymore about it. It's what I
Yeah.
want to do. Like I feel like sometimes people don't understand that when you're like, I'm on a growth momentum. I'm all about growing as a human, as a person, as a friend, as a father, as a
Yeah.
husband, as a whatever you call me. If I'm something to you positive, I'm all about growing in that part of my life. So for you, if we're friends, I'm all about growing as a friend and as a person. To my wife, it's a husband. I'm all about being a better husband every day, trying to figure shit out. My kids, being a father, rest. It's like I'm done just sitting there and moping and going like fuck. Like I saw an opportunity and I took it. I'm like I need to figure out how to be better at this. And I feel like people they just want to just just be negative about the whole fucking thing. Like it's fucked up.
I think a lot of that has to do with like confidence too, because you're a very confident person, as am I, and that's why like me, it's like I never really cared what anybody thought about what I did anyway. But I mean, like my podcast, like easily people could rip into me about how stupid it is or whatever it is,
Yeah.
But I'm like, I do what I want. I do it because I enjoy it. So it's like, what do I care if people do or don't listen to it? I'm like, I do it because I enjoy it. So I think a lot to do with their confidence, and like that's it for me. I can't do nothing. Like if I wasn't working on wrestling, it has to be something I'm doing. That's why I'm like, at the time, and then the last time I was on your show, like talking about the podcast, it was to find an outlet to do something. Cause like, I just like producing stuff. Like I was thinking about trying to make a YouTube series, but I was like, the logistics of filming stuff without people, like it's so hard to get people to participate now because of the pandemic. So I was like, at least the podcast, I can focus more easily on that. But I mean, it's the same thing. Like just knowing that I'm doing something. Like I can't sit around and just like, well, maybe in a month I'll be able to go back to doing this.
Yeah.
Maybe at the end of the summer, I'm like, that's a long way to live, like at least this way I feel like, yeah, the world kind of sucks right now, but I'm still doing enough things for myself that I feel engaged. I feel entertained. I mean, I'm happy with what I'm doing. So
my point also about the growth part was that I feel like people always like I grow as a person. So sometimes like my interests change or my point of view on certain things change. Like, yeah, like I did like I think I did like 40 episodes of This Savage Life. Like, yeah. Why did I feel the need to like change the format and change this? It's just because during this time I grew and I felt like this was more what I wanted to do now. Like before this, it was more about me. Now I want to be more about the guests and be more of a, of a showcase. I just had a different idea. And I kind of stopped giving a fuck about like, well, I don't give a shit what people are going to think. I'm just going to try it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, then I'll adapt and I'll come up with something else. It's like people have to stop worrying about just like, well, I wanted to be, I was on my way to being this, and now this fucking thing happened, and now I have to stop and wait. Now you don't wait, motherfucker. You try to figure out something else. Like, this doesn't mean that the world stops for like, it doesn't have to stop for you. Like, the people that I find inspiring in all this throughout this pandemic are people that didn't let this shit phase them or at a very minimal level. Like, yeah, it sucks, but I'm going to adapt and I'm going to keep moving and I'm going to keep creating content. I keep creating the content that I think is positive and necessary for people out there, and then just keep doing that shit. Because it's all about creating content in this pandemic world. Like if you're not, that's another thing people are afraid or hate to admit is that, well, just why are you on your phone all the time? And like people sometimes have to realize that I picked this business. I'm a at the end of the day right now, I'm a fucking pro wrestler, and I'm putting myself out there, and I need to put some shit out there,
Why? Like that's it. One time in class, our coach Drew had said, asked people like, "Why do you want to be a wrestler?" And everyone had, "Oh, I grew up watching it." And I'm like, nobody said what should be one of the main answers. I'm an attention whore. I'm like, obviously that has to be like an intrinsic part of who you are. If you want to perform in front of strangers, if you want to go out half naked, like being an attention whore is part of it. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, But I mean, like obviously, if I was a shy person that didn't want everyone to hear what I had to say, I wouldn't be saying all this crazy shit either in the ring, on podcasts, or wherever it is. Like it's part of what we want to do and part of who we are.
I think people are afraid to admit that though. Like people, 9 out of 10 people won't admit it, but me and you will.
Yeah.
You know what
I
mean?
think it's because people take it as like you're narcissistic or you're conceited. Yeah. Like it's not that I think I'm better, or it's just I just enjoy entertaining. I enjoy making somebody laugh. I enjoy pissing somebody off. So it's like getting that reaction is what I enjoy. And when you're talking about like not sitting around doing nothing, we're talking about Mike Marston. Imagine if after his injury coming to the pandemic, he's like, well, what the fuck's the point of training? There's nothing going on. There's no wrestling. He wouldn't be having his matches right now. He wouldn't be on RDS. He wouldn't have, the opportunities that he's going to have coming. It's like, that's because he kept pushing. He's like, I don't give a shit what's going on today. I'm fucking working for tomorrow. And I think that's I think it'd be hard to get through life if all you do is worry about the now, and you're like, because things always, like, there's always going to be shit in your life. But I'm like, if you don't think about why you're working for the good stuff, you're trying to get to the better part. So it's like, if you stay stuck in the grime and the crap, like, you'll never get out of it, kind of thing.
I think people get lost. I was talking to this with the guy that I was on the podcast on earlier, and I said I think a lot of people get lost in the fact that they put like this, they put this goal on this pedestal or at the end of the line, right? At the end of the race, and they go, "That's my goal right there." And whatever obstacle pops up, they either try to overcome it or run over it and then just keep going for that goal. But like when something like a fucking pandemic hits that is basically a wall where you can't see your goals anymore, you're left to you're gonna have to adapt to either something new goals, new things you might like. I saw this as an opportunity to be, listen, I can't do these 3-4 things anymore, but I've been meaning to do these 2 or 3 things. It's either that or I'm gonna stay and get fat on my, you know what I mean? Like I can choose to do nothing, start drinking and just day drink a whole day, sit on my ass, watch Netflix all day. I'm not saying, listen, motherfucker, if you want to do that, I'm not going to be the one to stop you. If you're happy with that, with being that, then do you. But that's not who I am. Like, I'm about like just, especially where I'm at in my life, like 40 and kids and father, like for me, it's all about the journey and about growing, like I said, as a person. I can't stop myself because I just needed to figure out, like, look, I always wanted to put more energy behind the podcast. Now it's time to do that. I have an opportunity. I'm at home. I have nothing else to do. I can't train. I can't do this shit. I'm here, blah, blah, blah. Let's do this, right? And then it kind of like molds this new person. It kind of like adds this branch to your personality where you're like, oh, I'm getting better at this. And now it's opening these doors. And let me peek through this door. And who fuck knows, right? You might try something you've been meaning to try all day, and you're like, man, I can't believe I've been doing this whole time. You know, my wife, for example, was working out. I started now she's a fucking, she's like, I can't stop. You know, she wants to go on and work out all the time, and, you know, hates it when she doesn't have the time to. Like, I created a fucking monster, but she saw an opportunity, she grabbed it, and then it was like, but it's a positive outcome. I hate when people just sit back and go, there's nothing I could do, so I'm just going to sit back and fuck up. And then they get angry, and then they want to shit on everybody else that they see. Oh, that motherfucker, I don't understand. Like, man, I kept living, man, you know?
And it's just, we talk about like pivoting, like with your dreams. It's like, like, you know, I started out with wrestling. The wrestling got cut short. It got put on pause because of my injury. So then now I'm working on the podcast. And maybe in 5-10 years, I'll be doing something different. But all of these things will be like parts of my portfolio to show, like, look, he can do this, he can do this, he can do this, he can do this. Like, it's like, if you're doing something to try and do something good, it'll never be a waste of time. Like, even if in 5 years or a year or 6 months, I'm like, well, I'm done with podcasting, I want to do a YouTube series. It's not like I lost that. I'm going to have some fans who listen to that and said, oh, I like that, I'm going to listen to this now. Like, it's not wasted effort, so long as it's like, you know, depending what you're doing. Obviously there's some exceptions, but I mean, it's not wasted effort. If you're working towards something good, it's going to pay off one way or another. Like the wrestling, I may not be wrestling in 10 years, but having that as a background is going to help me with discipline, help me with, you know, all sorts of different things.
Life lessons that you learn throughout the journey is what you need to pay attention to, because at the end of the day, like, life keeps moving forward. Like, if you don't want to follow along and just stop and stay stuck in that moment and in that part of your life, then that's your decision. But the world keeps going around, you know, people around you keep living. And I feel that a lot of these people that go and would just stop and mope around, like, they get left behind because the majority of the people around them maybe go like, well, I kept living my life. And then you're like, oh, people don't call me anymore. And how come you don't invite me? This is because, dude, you're a fucking bummer. And all you fucking complain about is all that bullshit. When I want to be surrounded by love and positive thinking, and I want to talk about how you think it's this and how you think it's because of this. I just want to be around my fucking friends and talk shit about just bullshit and aliens and shit, and just, you know, just relax and chill out, or be part of a dynamic that is interested in moving forward and growing as people, you know. Like, it sounds hippy dippy when I say it, and I'm like, damn.
But that's it. When I talk about positivity, my sister's always like, "Oh, you're a fucking cult member," and I'm like, "But it's true though. Like, the negativity, it does add up. If it's you or somebody near you that's always bitching about something, it's like I always say it for my examples. Like, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, "Fuck, I hate my job. Oh Christ," and driving to work, "Fuck, I hate this. Fuck." Think you're gonna have a good day at work? It's like if you're
No,
constantly flooding yourself with negative thoughts, it's like there's no way you're gonna pick good out of something. Like
you know what's funny is that people don't realize sometimes how insignificant a thing can be to turn something around. Like I'll give you an example. Like every day I get up, like I could choose to look, it's 6. I get up at 6:30 and I'm like, man, I wish I could sleep in. Am I tired? Of course I'm tired, motherfucker. I don't go to bed. I can't go to bed early. I'm 11:30 midnight. I'm in bed and then I'm on my phone, but like for another 15 minutes, like we all know we all do it. Fuck.
yeah,
But I get up every morning and I've gotten in the habit of like picking, like, for example, I'll make myself coffee and then then I look forward to that when I get to work and then I'm ready to work. And then I take that first sip of coffee. That first sip of coffee is always the best for me. I look forward to that little moment, that insignificant moment for me, that when I take that first sip of coffee, that's when the day starts for me. I start working and then it's like, I get into that mindset of like, my job right now, I'm here from 7 to 3 and I'm going to work and I'm going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to do my job. And then when something gets asked of me that I wasn't expecting, I'm going to adapt and do those things. But then at 3 o'clock comes around and then I'm going to fucking then move on to my next thing during this day. But I feel like a lot of the times, like, it's easy that when you start that ball rolling of negative energy and negative thoughts, that you could just keep that ball going. And then you realize it's noon and all you've been doing the whole morning is being so negative. And then you're in this mood of like, how am I going to dig myself out of this hole that I've created myself? And it was through no fault of anybody else. It was completely my fault because I'm myself in my own head, my own thoughts. And I let myself get to that point. And sometimes, like, I think people don't realize how insignificant a little thing could be to just make that flip from going down that negative road into like, motherfucker, bump this, go back the hill. The shit's good on the other side.
You fuck
don't
something
forget,
up back
right?
there.
Yeah. And
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it.
I just because I've seen that in other people. It's happened to me before. I can be a fairly intense personality, good or bad, and it's like I've seen other people where it's like you're like, fuck everything, fuck everyone, fuck this guy, and they're talking about a family friend and they're like, fuck them, and I'm like, why? Like, what have they done to you? Oh, they fucked this, and then I'm like, and then when we talked about it, like, it's true, they haven't really done anything to you. It's just, I'm like, you get these negative thoughts, and the more time from having seen the person to talk to the person, you build up these stories, you build up these reasonings, and it's like, and then by the time it's like you've come to a conclusion, like, fuck them, they're a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's all you who created them. And I've done that myself, where I'm like, fuck everything and blah blah blah. And then when you're done, you're like, what a stupid way to think about it. Like, I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? But you don't see it when you're in the heat of it. But it's like after you kind of learn to like recognize it and be like, okay, like I'm having a bad morning, whatever. Like, hey, take a second, breathe, do what I have to do, and then continue. Because I find if you just keep trudging through it, like, I find my superpower is like I can endure shit. I can just, if I don't like it, I can just grit my teeth and go through anything, whether it's shitty problems at work, problems, whatever it is, like, and then, but I'm like, if you keep doing that, eventually that builds up. So I had to learn to be like, okay, if there's bad shit in my life, either I got to fix it or drop it. I'm like, I can't just keep enduring with it because it's causing problems for me, like.
I feel like it's so easier sometimes to start making up situations, like, you ever do that sometimes? I know I find myself doing that. And I think maybe that's what you were saying right now, is like, like sometimes you think of a person and then you start making up what you think they think about you, or
like
how
justify something. That's it.
Like justify. But sometimes you go like, I'll try to find an example. Like if someone hasn't texted you in a long time or messaged you in a long time, or like liked any of your posts, it could be anything. And then then you start making up this narrative of how you think this person perceives you in this moment, while the whole time that person is probably not even thinking about you. They're
in the car, they saw
probably
something
just busy about about their own life. And sometimes it's easy to fall into that. I guess it's narcissistic, to believe that everybody is always thinking about you at all times. But when you're an attention whore, like a professional wrestler, or someone that spends a lot of time creating content online, like we do, sometimes
thinking about me.
you depend on those people sometimes thinking about you, and you want, because at the end of the day, be like you said, like if you're ready to admit that you're an attention whore, that means that there's a part of your psyche or your mentality, your mindset that depends on people thinking about you randomly so that they could go view your content. Or you're either that guy that's always on social media, just always plugging your content, and then people all of a sudden they're gonna go, well, I'm gonna go see his fucking video. You know what I mean? So I try to find that balance sometimes when I have my podcast. Like I put them out there and I push it, but it's like I try to find ways instead of constantly like sharing 3 times a day the links to my podcast, because I find after a while it just like people scroll and they go, he's shared this 18 times already. Like, why am I gonna, like, I know what he's sharing. Like, if I didn't click on it the last time, I ain't gonna click on this time, you know?
Yeah, that's why I put like
get lost.
I put little clips in my Instagram story, because I'm like, that way it's like, if you want to hear it, you'll click on it. Whereas if you don't, it's like, because I know if everything I publish is always my episodes, it's like, even for when wrestling was going on, I was still performing. If all I ever post are matches and dates, people zone out. Whereas if it's like a mix of like, you know, stupid stuff, little skits, date, like that way that keeps them engaged. But I'm like, the same thing. I don't post every episode, because sometimes people won't. I'll try a different way to post, like to let people know there's an episode. Either it's a clip or I'll put like a joke in the post. Like, because I find if it's just dry content, eventually people won't bother looking at it anymore.
Let's stick to this subject, because I'm curious to know, like, do you have, when you post your content on social media, do you have normally like a set plan of like, well, this is what I need to do, these are the days that I need to post? Like, do you think about those things? Because I know I do sometimes.
Yeah, before Instagram used to have like in the insights would tell me like the best times to post, but it doesn't seem to be there anymore. But from that I just remembered most, like the best time to post for for the people reacting to my content is typically nearing the end of Mondays or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and always after like 1 p.m. until about 6 p.m. So I always try and post them in the afternoon around lunchtime. Because I know if you post it I know some people, they'll post like 10 things right away in the morning, but then it gets lost in the shuffle of the news feed. So I try and do my one post a bit later in the afternoon to get people to see it. But I find it's, especially on Facebook, I find it so hard to get people to engage in anything. To get someone to double tap to send you a like is like the hardest thing in the world. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know, like.
I know that if you post, I think I read something last week, or I always like to look like what's the best time to post on Instagram. I know it sounds crazy that I do these things, but I'm like, I'm a content creator to a certain extent. Like I need to know these things. It's like running a business. Like a lot of people that go like, you spend too much. I can't believe, like, just post your shit and forget about it. Like, what do you care what time you post and how many interactions? But motherfucker, it's a business. I might not be making any money off this podcast right now, but I still have to have like a business mindset about it. Like it's still something that I'm that I'm curating and creating, you know. I know that from what I know, from Monday to Thursday between 1 and 4, I think are like the hot spots, right? And then it varies during the day. I maybe like 7. Like I like to, like sometimes I'll try, like I know that for me, I try to pay attention to when do I go, okay, I eat dinner maybe after dinner for 30 minutes, right? Okay, so maybe from 6 to 7, maybe a lot more people are like, I just ate. Let me see what's on my feed. Relax. Or end of the day, I haven't been able to be on my phone all day. I've been busy at work. I'm just on my phone, blah, blah, blah. That would be towards the end of the day. But I know that everything I've read about is like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, not a lot of people interact.
Everyone's running around doing stuff, and
So I post a lot of my nonsense on the weekend, a lot of my and it's weird because a lot of those interactions, like I'll post, obviously I'm with my kids and my family a lot, and me and the wife love to like do these videos, and like I do them and she goes along with them, and these impromptu things, and they get the most reactions, a lot of them, right? Because they're funny and stuff like that. But the content where I want people to notice the most, or that I get more visibility. Like if I share something about my podcast or shit like that, I try to keep them like, okay, maybe I'll go on my lunch hour around 1, and then I'll post something if I want to share. So maybe try, but I've been going with those things that I read, and I feel like those aren't the right times for me. So now I'm trying to adjust. Like, oh, it's more. I get more interaction in night times between 5 and 7. So
It's
like,
hard to tell though, eh? Because like just for the podcast itself, like to some extent, you know, you can track where it's being downloaded, who's listening to what. And there's some episodes that I'm like, that one wasn't very good. I'm like, wasn't that strong. And then it gets twice as many views as ones that I thought were bangers. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, cause I know you're saying like for the Savage show, you wanted to try and be able to get different people on the show and stuff. I know just for mine, especially, well, mainly because I guess, you know, West Dawson's mostly known through Quebec for wrestling or whatever. But my French episode had twice as many listens as any others. Like, I'm sure there were a lot of fans that wanted to know what it was, but they couldn't understand me talking at 1,000 miles an hour. But then that one got so many. So I'm like, maybe I'm going to do a few more French episodes moving forward, just to at least keep that, you know, whoever enjoyed that, at least there's something to come back to them to find it. But it's just, I have trouble coming up with the crazy shit in French. I'm not as quick to quick to shoot in French.
I think you have to realize that what makes it charming.
Yeah.
That's why they're like, we know what he meant. He didn't say it right, but we get it.
No, that's
and it's fucking funny the way he said it, right? Like, I don't want to come out and look like that, like to the point where people go, the fuck, that guy's an attention whore. Like, enough.
Yeah, not pandering. That's it.
Like me. Like, I try to keep my content as positive and inspirational. Like, sorry, Jesus, dry throat. This fucking weed is killing me.
It's the Rona, man.
Fucking Rona again. Where was I? Lost my track of thought. Yeah, like it. Sometimes I feel like I don't know if it's like that for you, but sometimes I was telling my wife the other day, I feel like an imposter. Like, I have this like imposter syndrome. Like, I'm not popular or successful or like any sort of like accomplished enough to have it, but I feel like sometimes when I share my shit, I'm like, who am I to say that, or to tell people they should do this, you know, especially when it comes to that, like working out shit. Like, I feel like I should just post my shit and just move on and share what I want. But at the end of the day, I always felt like I wanted to be someone that inspires people. And it's a big reason why I stick to kind of the same narrative when it comes to my podcast. I love the fact that through podcasting, I could sit down with someone that's a fucking doctor and have a super serious conversation. And then I could go and have a conversation with like you about life in general, and just shoot the shit with a friend and just have a cool conversation that people are going to find stuff interesting.
Yeah.
And then I could do something more serious, like more like, I wouldn't say a bummer, but like more about telling my story or who I am and how transparent, and the things that the bullshit and the demons that I deal with, like, can be a little bit more heavy. But I always feel like, even if I can find that, even if it's only one person that goes, man, that made a difference in my life, even if it's only for that day or for that week, then I feel like that's what I hate to use these words, but meant to be, and be the person. But it's like, and if I want to accept that part of me, I'm also going to have to accept the fact that I need to be doing all the quote unquote pandering and ask, hey guys, do you mind giving a like, you know, to help me out, you know, just go give the podcast a listen, go do this, go do that. But I do try to keep the spamming to a minimum, you know, because after a while, I do understand that even the algorithm is going to go, dude, it's the 18th fucking time you post about your podcast.
Nobody wants to like it. Leave it alone.
I ain't sharing this shit. Like, I'm going to dig this deep down the timeline, you know? It's messed up though. But that's it's the world we're living in right now. And this pandemic has only fast tracked this way of being. I know, for me anyway.
Yeah, because I know, like you're saying about content, like I need to make, I got a video for my podcast. Like I post on YouTube, but it's just a static, it's just an image for
yeah.
But it's because I know that adds to it, because it's like, the more someone is engaged, the more they want to see it. But also I think it's funny to hear when people talk, because I always talk about my chiseled physique and stuff, and people who have never seen me, I wonder if they're like, is this guy just a conceited asshole? I was like, nah, I don't actually look like that. But because we see like through the podcast dashboard, like there's listens all over the place, and some of them are like pop up in a random country somewhere, and I was like, I had one download in Brazil last week, and I was like, was that a mistake? Did someone like pocket play my podcast? Like, why is somebody listening to that there? Like, it's so weird.
I don't look at those things. I'm sure I could, the things that I've been paying a lot of attention to since I relaunched Le Savage Show is that it's the YouTube. Like, I'm really trying to build the YouTube. Like, I don't look, if I feel that if it's gonna, I feel that in the podcast, it's always an audio first medium, right? Like, you don't need the video in order to get the message or get the content. But I also have to get away from the fact that I discovered podcast in a way where I started listening it at first through YouTube. I discovered Joe Rogan podcast, and I started watching the Joe Rogan podcast on YouTube. And then came along technology and go, oh no, you can get all your podcasts on this Apple Podcast thing. And I had an iPhone. I downloaded an Apple Podcast. The moment I transitioned to Apple Podcast on my phone, I didn't listen to podcasts on YouTube anymore. YouTube for me became almost obsolete, but I got all my podcast content through Apple Podcast. So your podcast, everything, I listen to it on my Apple Podcast because the way I live my life, the job that I do gives me an opportunity to just plug my headphones and listen to the podcast. I don't have time to watch videos and just pay attention to the video. If I did, maybe I would watch it that way. So I took what I thought was the hardest one to break through, and I so this time around when I came up with the Le Savage Show, like the reason I added show at the end is because I have this vision of being like the Tonight Show, where like you sit with someone and you have a conversation and you shoot the shit. But and that's why I'm doing them by season 2. Like I go season 1, I'm going to shoot, I don't know, I was planning on doing 12 episodes, maybe 6 French, 6 English, take a few weeks off and then launch season 2. Like not necessarily like you get season 1 in September and then season 2 is next September. You're going to have to wait a year just to break them down and be like, see the progression from season 1, who I had on, how was I doing? Then season 2, I grew. Why did I grow? So I'm able to track that way. I feel for me, it's the talk. I don't. It's not a talk show. I don't want to call it like that. But in my head, that's why I called it Le Savage Show. It's kind of have the vision. Like I want the show to become a platform where I'll be able to have people on and have the spotlight be on them. So hopefully one day the podcast will grow big enough and large enough where I'll be able to help people out by offering them my platform and having thousands and hopefully millions of people discover someone that they would have never discovered on their own. And all between that, being able to have super cool conversations because I just love to talk to people,
Yeah, well, I think starting with like the idea of the show as well, it's like in people's minds, it's not limited to a podcast. At least then it's like, it's more like with the video and the fact that you're trying to grow it bigger. It's like from the get-go, it's not just a little audio clip you listen to on your phone. It's like a full show, something you can experience. But like that, like our podcasts are so different, like yours is like, the reason I like listening to yours is because I don't know if it's because I know you, but I mean, like the conversations sound real. It doesn't sound like you're preaching. It doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like you're reading off a sheet. They sound like real conversations. Whereas mine is like, I always compare mine to the 10-minute podcast with Will Sasso, Brian Callen, who's like a person non grata on Hollywood right now, and Chris D'Elia, who was also a person non grata in Hollywood right now. But 2
out of 3 are
2 out of 3. Will, you better be good. But it's an amazing podcast. They're super funny guys, but it's like I compare it to them because I'm kind of like a poor man's ripoff there. Like theirs is 10 minutes, mine's 8 minutes, it's because it's like I just like the fact that it was a podcast. It's more of like a release from regular shit. Like if you like I said, you listen to it on your break at work. If you're having a rough morning, maybe something stupid I said that you found funny, you'll be like, sort of turn your humor around, get you going. So it's they're different. Like they serve different purposes, but like they're both. I think we both treat them with the same respect and the same like professionalism that we like. My idea isn't to just like, I would love to have this become a thing where I get, shitloads of downloads where I can branch out, do more things with it. Like the goal is to build it as much as I can there, and it's just really to see where I can get it from recording in an abandoned derelict apartment to where it can be in 10 years kind of thing.
It's I think the reason that we kind of see it the same way is that even though our shows are so different, but like there's something similar, is that I think the reason why you might enjoy the part of it, I'd like to believe, is because maybe I'm good at this. But I think the reason is me and you know each other. So when we're face to face, if you come over for dinner or we go see each other at a wrestling show and we go out and party all night, the way I speak to you, the way I am is exactly the way I'm speaking on my podcast. I don't have any training in radio, and it's not like, hey, welcome to the Savage Show. Today I'm having a great conversation. It's just like I fumble around. Sometimes I can't find my words and my brain doesn't work. Sometimes I get too high. I can't figure out where I'm at. Like there's the conversation is not 100% smooth. And sometimes I go on these tangents where I don't know if it happens to, I talk a lot. So sometimes I'll talk for 5 minutes. And then at the end of that, I'm like, what the fuck was it? How did I get here? What was the original point? They happened to her early in our conversation. And I'm like, what the fuck? I had to stop talking and let you talk and try to figure out, like, why did I start talking in the first place? Oh yes, fuck, that was my point. But I think it's because it's sincere. Like I don't try to be someone I'm not on the podcast. Like if someone asks me a question, or if I want to bring up a subject and talk to you about it, it's exactly how I would bring it up if it was just me and you in a car driving to Drummondville for a wrestling show. You know what I mean? It's the same conversation we're gonna have here than if it was in the back seat of a car, but no one recording or no one listening.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I want. I want this to come through as like, oh yeah, he's not trying to be this person. He's not just to get likes and views and downloads. Like he's just doing something that he genuinely loves to do. And if people listen, they listen. And if they don't listen, they don't listen. Then that's what it is. Yeah. And it's weird because like I recorded the first episode and I really wanted to make a point that everything I shared on YouTube was really like, it looked like it had a certain look. That's why I came up with like the edit about like filled up the screen like with like logos and stuff. Like I wanted to look a certain way, and I was able to accomplish that thing. And I remember when it went out, I'm like, man, it's the vision I had in my head is exactly what is the product I'm putting out. And I'm like, I like it. Like I don't have to tweak it anymore, and I'm satisfied with that, you know?
Well, no, definitely. And I think any project you put passion into, like you see that come across, whether it's for comedy, for like serious discussions, like it comes across. Like me, I always find it cool when I think about, like the conception I had for, I keep merging my French and English. I like the other day, I could not think of like the English word for thing, because conception, I don't think it's conception, inception is la conception of my podcast to what it is now. I have 19 episodes, but they're not long, but I mean, that's what I wanted. I'm like, when I see all kind of the weird titles I have for things and think about how different some of them are to one another, I was like, that's really what I wanted. That if somebody listens to one episode and they listen to another, they're like, what? Like these are fucking night and day. Like, yeah. So that's kind of what I was going for. It's cool to see that develop and see it keep growing as to what I wanted.
It's nice when you see the product like you wanted it to be so early on in the process. Yeah, like you're 19 episodes in and you're like, this is exactly what I want. This, if I was searching for a podcast and I saw this podcast, I'd be like, this is exactly what the fuck I want to listen to, Or it's exactly what you saw in your head and you took your time and you're like, how am I going to make this happen? I think for me in podcasting, it was a lot of trial and error at first. It was like, the minute I discovered how easy it was to produce a podcast, for me, it might not be this easy for everybody else, but for me, and then I was able to figure it out, then it became about trying to find out who I was as this content creator. And at first, the original idea of the Modern Maverick podcast was me and a buddy, and it was basically just us having conversations, and it was exactly what I wanted it to be at the time. And then it merged into something else. And now with this pandemic forcing, I think personally for me also, it has to do with the pandemic forcing me to change the concept of having a one-on-one interaction and of having in house, like having people come over into my studio and sitting down. I didn't kind of realize how limited I was to the guest that I was having on. And now with technology and Zoom and this new world we live in, I can have a conversation with you. I can have a conversation with somebody in a different country if I wanted to. I could have guests on my podcast that I would have never been able to have in studio like I wanted it before. And I feel like the concept of Le Savage Show goes extremely well with the technology aspect of it, the online Zoom, Skype call interaction. So I'm super happy. And I think that for me, if I take all the episodes of all the different podcasts, I'm probably close to 100 recorded episodes, or, between the 2-3 different podcasts that I've had. But like, I'm only starting to like fall into what I really, at the beginning of all this, what I really wanted all this to be, like, I'm not afraid to admit that I get a lot of my inspirations from the Joe Rogan podcast, but I don't necessarily want this to be a ripoff of Joe Rogan. I want it to be something similar, but with my own perspective and my own twist and my own, like, my own seasoning in it,
Well, I say like Joe Rogan, it's not like it's the format of his show that made it popular. It's Joe Rogan. So it's like yours, and even any comparison people can make, it's you're the one selling the show. So people that listen to it, they listen to it for you, not because, oh, he has a guest and he does this, he does that. It's because they like the content you're putting out. But at least, and for the Zoom thing too, at least now it's so normal to see Zoom on TV, on any kind of interview, that like say this was pre-pandemic or whatever. It may look weird if it's like, how come this show is always in person and this guy is always doing it by Zoom? Whereas now it's like, it's as legitimate as any other form of show, like broadcast television is done, everything's through Zoom now. So at least that really helps out to get us to par with what's out there already,
I'm able to create a show that's almost on par with something they have on NBC or CBS, because they're forced to do it the same way I'm doing it now, being at home with a nice curated background as much as possible with all my pictures. It's like I have all these ideas on how I want my background to look like, and I spend a lot of time, and I'm not done. Like, I want to add to this and I want to make it look a certain way, because I see these guys that are successful in the business, and I try to take away from them, and I take a little bit away from that. And then I'll spend time looking at other people on YouTube, like, how does this person do her podcast now? And then, look what she has in her background, and look how she has her microphone, and look, I have a fucking camera stick here. I have my camera on it. I have this light, this ring light that all the Instagram models get there. Those like,
the little
shit there. But I don't have the big ones. I have a small one. So that's the light that I see. And then I bought this fucking boom thing here.
These things are money.
I had like the cheap ones. I had the cheap ones with the springs, like the cheap ones. You have the springs, like on the side there?
Yeah.
Right? I find that for me, because I fidget a lot, it made like a lot of noise thing.
Yeah.
But I ordered this one on Amazon last week, and it's $80, and it's similar to the Rode one where there's no springs. It's all so it's a lot more quiet, and it's a lot bigger and sturdier. Like, there's no movement. It probably makes noise right now. I can't hear it in my headphones.
A little bit,
but like, that's all it is, and it's like, I don't know, man. I'm able to create all of this with just these things, and I'm able to put something out there that I enjoy. I enjoy after this going, and I'm gonna, I'll release this episode in a few days, but like, I'm gonna go in and edit a little bit, and then add the music, add the intro, add the outro. Like, I love that shit. Like, I can spend a couple of hours in a week just doing that thing, for all my episodes. Like, there's no part of this process for me at podcasting that I hate. And I think that's important, because especially now that I just relaunched this new show, like, it's part of my everyday thought. Like, I'm constantly thinking who I'm going to have on, who can I contact, what questions, like, I have this guest next week, I'm constantly thinking, and I don't want my day to be just my thoughts to be completely about that. But right now it's like, it's important, and I have to take it seriously,
That's it. I think before, like with wrestling, to come up with content was so much easier because there's always a match coming up. There's always something that I'm like, Night Train Express, blah, 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 you know, so you always had a direct target. Whereas as soon as it wasn't wrestling, I was like, it's a lot harder to come up with new content all the time. I was like, holy Christ, you know?
Yeah.
And hopefully the next time I'm on your show, because you can't really see now, I'm setting up this room to be my more permanent setup. I'm going to buy some acoustic panels and things like that to muffle the sound a bit. But because before I was recording this giant open room that now it's getting too cold that you can hear the next week's episode is coming out. You can hear I'm super congested in it because I'd been there long enough preparing that like my nose started running. I was getting cold. I had my winter coat on. I was like, okay, I can't be like fighting the shivers as I'm recording. It doesn't sound very natural, you know? So at least now I got a better setup, but hopefully
it's good though, because you're finding time, you're discovering what's working, what's not, and then you're adjusting and then you're adapting, and it, like you said, you love it so much that you're willing to invest not only money, but like a lot of your time in it,
Yeah.
And it's fuck, man, it's like how many times have I bought podcast equipment like microphones and then I wasn't doing it anymore and I sold it? 2 or 3 times that I did this,
Yeah.
And then I finally stuck with it and said, you know what, like I need to really put some energy behind it, because I don't know, I just, like I said, I enjoy fucking doing it, I love it. Like I feel like it's just where, like it, like you said earlier, if it brings on something new, a new skill in my life that I'd be able to use later on in life, who knows, maybe someday somebody will offer me a job to be a fucking host on and I'd be like, dude, for real? Like, you never really know. It might not be the goal. Like, I'm not doing this in order to get a job. It's what I'm doing is just an example.
Could help.
I'm using,
That's
but yeah, you never know, right? Maybe this just leads to something bigger and better, but for now, like I love, and I love, there's a lot, I don't know if you noticed paying attention, but there's a lot of people like are going to start podcasting. Like probably, I was a bit early on the process, but there's nothing else to do right now. And people are slowly giving into, maybe I need to adapt and become this different content creator, and start podcasting or start doing lives on Facebook, live on Instagram, or just find a different way to create some content.
Yeah. And there's some people that post every week that they're starting a podcast, and they never put out episodes. There's one person I'm thinking of, they posted like 8 times. I'm like, are you gonna do one? I'm like,
yeah.
I like every time I like the post, and I was like, nothing never came of it.
Where's the episodes? No, I feel that. I think a lot of people, at the end of the day, they want to be the content creator, but they just don't know where to start. And like it's like I do this all on my own. I do everything, and I do understand though how you can be your worst enemy. Like there's certain people that they say they want to do something, but that they don't want to know where to start, and they want to stay relevant. They want people to still be expecting certain things, and but each their own, I guess, man. So what's next, man, for Gabagool and 8? Like, for real, though?
Oh, well, right now, actually, you can anticipate a very exciting episode for next week there. I dive deep into the world of Steven Seagal and Aikido. Nice. So that's going to be fun. And as I posted, my mother was like, can he hear this? I'm like, fuck, I never really thought about that. I'm like, technically he could. And I'm like, I think even in his old age, he'd kick the shit out of me. So I'm like, hopefully he doesn't take it too personally if he does hear it. But no, for now, Gabagool and 8, just I keep pumping stuff out. I have a few ideas lined up moving forward. I'm going to do a presidential episode soon, a Christmas episode.
All your content is not pre-recorded at this point, though.
No, that's it.
Record every week.
At first, I had banked like 7 or 8 episodes. I was like, oh, I'm on easy street, and then I pretty much waited 8 weeks to have it use them all. So now I'm pretty much catching up on week for week because I don't have anything ready, and then that's it. So now I'm just trying to. I want to bank a few so that around Christmas I'm not like stressed trying to do them at the same time. But I do want to, hopefully in 2021, I want to try and get some video content. So once I have this area set up better, because I don't really want to film this empty bedroom there. There's really nothing in it. But at least get video going with that, and then try and get more listens as much as I can. Because like I said, I don't track it with detail. Like, oh my God, I went down 2%. Like, it's more I just track to see like, is it going up? Am I hitting the new areas? Am I getting like who are they listening to it more on Apple, on Spotify? Like, to try and see where I can guide certain things. And like, and I don't censor anything I really say, except there was one episode I was like, ooh, I can't say that. That was like, I was like, it was it was too vulgar. I was like, I gotta get rid of that sentence. So I cut that out. But I try not to censor anything. But I realized too, I'm like, I don't want to create party lines that someone maybe hears a snippet of something and is like, oh, he's some liberal snowflake, and then they never want to listen to me again. I'm like, I'm very much kind of in the center for most things. So I try to rip on everybody equally anyway.
It's it is though a fine line to walk, right? When you're trying to create content, and if you want to, like, it's not like you're a political podcast, so it's okay if you stay in the middle and not kind of not get involved in either the right or the left. And that it's the same for me. Like, I try not to keep my sentiments to certain things to myself because I don't feel it's any relevance to the podcast or to anybody that listens to me. I think that I'm transparent enough that people kind of understand who I am as a person, as a podcaster, as a pro wrestler, as a father, as a husband. Like, they all, all you need to do is go on my fucking Instagram, and it's easy to dissect what kind of person I am. Like, I'm not hiding anything, or I don't have any political agenda. And if you want to know on what side I lean on, I'll say it. I'm more of a centric guy than I am left or right. Like, I agree with certain points on the right, and I agree with certain points on the left. Like, if I had to pick, I guess I'm a bit more left than right, but at the end of the day, I try to stick it to the middle and not really pay attention to all that bullshit. But at the end of the day, I also try not to let it interfere with the content that I post, so that I don't become that guy that's always blah, blah, blahing about the left, or blah, blah, blahing about the right. Like, you kind of,
because that's not the purpose of it either.
Yeah, exactly. Like, my purpose is not to create any separation between any two groups or any whatever people. I'm here to try to entertain and inspire and motivate people. And I think with what I love about you and your podcast is that you realize you were good at something, the gift of gab, I call it. And it's like, honestly, dude, like, I know we're friends and shit, and I just don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but fuck, man, it's like, it's like I've rarely seen anybody who is as good as you, man, on the mic. Like, the shit. I remember when we used to still be able to wrestle, and we remember at the Torture, we'd cut these promos after the matches, and I'd be like, I wouldn't listen to any of the fucking promos except when you were on, because I knew
thank you very much.
I was trying to figure out, like, what kind of nonsense is going to fit into 60 seconds. And I was always amazed. Every time I'd listen to one of your promos, I'd go like, that was 5 minutes, but no, it was 59 seconds. And I'm like,
I think
Jesus
that's why I talk so
Christ,
fast,
man. You had my mind from here to here to here. You hit on 4 fucking points in 59 seconds. And I'm like, he made a point of each of them. He started and finished every single point, and was able to throw 4 funny jokes in the whole fucking thing that made me piss my pants. And I was like, dude, like, that's why I told you at first, I'm like, this motherfucker needs a podcast. Give him a microphone, give him a camera, bro. I'm happy you're doing this shit. I'm a huge fan of yours, man. And thanks again for coming on the podcast and being on the Savage
I'm always
Show, man.
happy, man.
I appreciate it. We're gonna do this more, man. Tell people where they can see your shit.
Yeah, well, that's it. Mainly because I'm too lazy to develop any other social apps. I'm mainly on Instagram, so it's at westdawson.tcprodojo, and search because I don't have an Instagram page for Gabagool, but on Facebook, Gabagool and 8. If you search Gabagool and 8 in Google, it's so specific. It either brings up The Sopranos, season 6, episode 6 of The Office, or my podcast. So you're gonna find it in one of those 3.
Let's end this with this, because I want to know, what the fuck is Gabagool?
All right, Gabagool. So everyone asks me that. People don't even know how to pronounce it. Originally, Gabagool is like I believe it's a type of like deli meat popular in the Italian culture. And in the show The Sopranos, Tony Soprano always looked for Gabagool. But I took it from The Office, where Michael Scott figured, whose office I'm in right now, who thought he was dealing with a mobster, but he was just an insurance salesman. So to look cool and look Italian, he orders Gabagool in a restaurant. I'll take the Gabagool. And the woman's like, what's that? He's like, I'll take the Gabagool, please. I just want the Gabagool. And then for whatever reason, I decided to make that the title of my podcast.
I love it, man. It fucking fits you. And man, keep doing your thing, man. I'm really happy for you. And I I really love your content, man. Again, thanks for coming on, man. And hopefully we'll definitely do this again. We've done it many times before and we'll fucking do it again, man.
Anytime. And I'll have to have you on Gabagool soon too.
Yes, I'll be on for sure, man.
All right.
All right. Cheers, man. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.
All right, bro.
Bye.